Hello and welcome to another edition of the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show, where this week we are super excited to have the offensive coordinator at Hamilton High School on the program today. Really excited to have Coach Justin Garman on the show. Coach has got a variety of experience at multiple locations, and I was super excited to get to talk to Coach because he's going to talk a little pin and pull, which is a subject that I am not super well versed on, so I was excited to get the opportunity to learn from Coach on that, and hopefully you are as well. While you're sitting there and listening as we get into the show, please make sure right now, like and subscribe. The only goal of this show, as we've talked about, is to reach more coaches and help spread the good word and get plenty of good football information out there. Incidentally, spring break, so not trying to tell anybody anything, but I was looking at some stuff today, and I don't know if anybody needs this, but I was looking at an old sermon of Billy Graham, and it said, "Faith always adds and worry always subtracts." And I thought that was a really good quote for any day, definitely for me, because I have self-described myself as the world champion of worry, and I thought that was really, really good stuff. So while we are talking about the show, I want to take just a moment to remind everybody the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show is brought to you by School Funder. School Funder, the only online fundraising company in America that lets you keep all of the money your team raises. Coaches all over the country would never give away 20% of the wins your team earns. Why do they willingly give away 20% of their proceeds in fundraising? Call the good people at School Funder at SCHOOLFUNDR.org and let them know the Blue and Gold Gridiron sent you, as it'll help the show. While you're helping the show, again, please like and subscribe. Our viewership is up, trying to get those subscriptions up as well. So, Coach, as we hop into this here, want to take a moment and if you could, kind of tell us about your football story. Always one of my favorite parts of the show.
No, of course. I appreciate you having me on, Cody. So it means a lot being able to come here and talk ball. Always enjoy doing that. But as far as my football story goes, I grew up in Peoria, Arizona, so more on the west side of town in comparison to where I'm at Hamilton now. I played for Richard Taylor over at Centennial. Graduated there in, '06. So I learned a lot from him over there. So it was an awesome experience getting to be a part of that program. And little did I know of how successful that program would really end up being. So it's kind of awesome to be able to brag about that when I have the chance to. Once I graduated high school, I went the JUCO route, played a season at Phoenix College, and then decided to forego my second year and kind of bet on myself and went and walked on at a Division II school called Fort Lewis College in Durango, Colorado, and earned my scholarship up there and played football up there for my next 3 seasons. And then I kind of moved back to the east side of town. That's where my mom and my grandma live, so I moved out here to the East Valley. Wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. It was actually my grandma. She was a teacher, and she was like, you know what, you should get involved in coaching. Like, I think that'd be something you would enjoy. And she reached out to the head coach at Corona del Sol at the time, who was Tom Joseph. Right, a good old school guy. He gave me my first opportunity of coaching in 2013 at Corona del Sol, and just kind of fell in love being around the high school scene and being around these young men and watching them develop and helping be a good role model for them. That I went ahead and pursued my master's degree in secondary ed and became a teacher. So I coached at Corona for 8 seasons. I was like a JV head coach for 4 of those seasons. I was a varsity receivers coach for several of those seasons. My last season there was 2020 during the COVID season, where we arguably had our best season that school's had, and going 8-0 and making it to the Open. So that was a cool experience for not only myself but for those players. And then after that season, I went to go see if I could learn somewhere else and ended up at Basha. Right, they were kind of the up and coming kind of program. They were starting to kind of get everything turn in the right direction there in that 2021 season. Ended up going undefeated, making the Open, and then we ended up winning it in 2022. So I learned a lot there. Chris McDonald was an awesome role model there. I learned a lot from him in 2 seasons. So that was a great experience. And then, I don't know, kind of took a little bit of a of a gamble, so to speak, I guess. Leaving 6A, and I got a call from an aspiring young head coach, Travis Dixon, who was going to be the head coach at East Mark and was looking for an offense coordinator. And I kind of wanted to see if I could go do it, if I could be the guy that called plays, and if I was successful with it. So I went out there with him for a season, and we had a pretty good year. Won the region championship, made it to the second round of the playoffs, which was, I thought, huge for that school, being its first year in 4A. And then the season ended, and little did I know that Hamilton was going to come knocking on his door with the opportunity to go be the head coach there, and then so I left and followed him to Hamilton, and knew that I was probably going to maybe wait a year or two to eventually become the OC over there. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity to learn a lot from Noel Mazzoni when he was over there for that season, which I learned a lot from him. And there's a lot of great coaches over there. And then finally this past season, I got the opportunity to be the offensive coordinator, and we had a pretty good year. And luckily, I was surrounded by some amazing coaches at Hamilton, lots of knowledgeable guys that kind of helped get this thing running. So it's been a great experience. It's been a wild journey, and we'll see where this next season takes us.
Coach, I love hearing about that, and for those of you that don't know, listening around the country, Coach has really learned from some of the best. Richard Taylor, one of the best coaches in Arizona prep history. Coach McDonald well, consider him a friend. Quentin Cooley, who I believe, if you were at Basha in 2022, you worked with, played for me, actually. So always love hearing that. Tom Joseph, an incredible coach. I believe if you were at Corona in the 2020 season, you worked with Coach Bechtold, who spent many years at Washington. So, Coach, you have really had, and obviously Coach Dixon, really highly thought of. Hamilton High School, one of the powerhouse programs in Arizona, and certainly has had multiple top 25 teams across the country. I know has an incredible group of youngsters coming back. I believe, I don't even know the one receiver y'all have, I think has 1,000 offers if it's possible. I'm not sure. And the quarterback, exceptionally talented too. Love all the 6A stuff being on YouTube, because I get a chance when our season ends to go back and watch some of it, and really enjoyed that. Loved hearing about all your experience, Coach, and we're going to turn it over to you now, and you're going to coach me up definitely, and you'll have to excuse my ignorance because I am not a huge pin and pull guy, but what I've seen of it I really like. I just am not sure I know enough about it to coach it. So hopefully looking forward to learning some pin and pull stuff from you today, Coach. So take it away.
Awesome. Quentin Cooley's my guy. I reach out to him once in a while, see how he's doing. He's out back in Alabama coaching out there. So I stay connected with him. So he's a good guy. I enjoyed coaching with him. But yeah, as far as pin and pull, it's a lot of variation. So like in the 2024 season, right, my first year at Hamilton, we were primarily an inside zone type team. And then kind of as I took over, started to, what were the things we were good at in the previous season, and what could we start to kind of, blend into what we already do that would give us some success. Ran it a ton when I was at Basha for those few seasons. Ran it a ton at Eastmark. So it was something that I wanted to slowly start implementing into our offense this season. We ran it 56 times for 450 yards. 42 of those were run, 14 of them were passed. So we averaged a little over 8 yards every time we ran this play. So it was a big change of pace play for us throughout the season. So in this first clip, right, of course I got to show an explosive play right off the bat. And the good thing about pin and pull is, right, if you have a really good offensive line coach that you can kind of sit down with and really talk about the different rules, right? And that's the huge thing with pin and pull, where I know, some people are like, do you want to run pin and pull? Do you want to run buck sweep? I like pin and pull because it gives you variation in who pulls. Now, obviously, you got to have some linemen that are capable of pulling and get lots of repetition with it. So this first look, right, early in the season, right against Centennial here, okay? Right, they were showing us a variety of looks. They're kind of like the 3-4 look here with their 2-4 eyes, right? So like a tight look, okay? So normally our tight ends rule, Okay, and I'll go to the end zone view in a second, right? He's kind of like gap down backer, right? So usually against a traditional forefront, right, you're probably going to get, a 5. Maybe he's head up on the tight end. But let's just say that he's in a 5. That tight end's going to down block on him, right? So now your tackle, right? I'll just kind of go to the end zone view real quick, so you can kind of just see the position of them, and then I'll go back to the wide view, right? So you can kind of see, right? You got your 2 4 eyes, okay, and then you got your guy over the nose. Okay, so normally, right, my tight end here, right, if there's a 5 here, he's going to down block. Okay, and then on my tackle is like, hey, do I have a guy in my gap, right? If we're going pin and pull right, do I got a guy to my left, okay? So if he's like, yes, I do, 4 eyes in my gap, I'm going to down block, right, onto that 4 eye, okay? But since my tight end doesn't have anybody here, there's different calls that you can give your tight end that lets the offensive line know, like, hey, are they going to push to go for this outside overhang backer, or are they going to focus on just the guys in the box, right? So we made a call like, hey, this week we want our tight end to actually kind of arc release to take this overhang and then let our pullers take care of the 2 guys in the box, okay? If your center's good enough, right, he should be able to hold this 0 long enough, and then that would mean that my second guard would now be my second puller, right? First puller should be keying him, right? Second puller should be keying him, okay? If we're doing this look, right? If we did the other way where he gapped down, then my first puller would look to kick out that first guy on the outside. Right, so we'll kind of run through the play a little bit. Okay, you see both your guards kind of get out. You got your tight end up top, right? He's arc releasing. That first puller, right, he sees our tight end. Hey, he sees kind of the butt, the backside of the tight end. He's kind of trying to say, hey, where's this block going to go? He sees him go outside, so he's all right, I'm coming off the inside of his butt, and I'm looking for that first guy in the second level, right? Right? Kind of reaches a little bit, misses him there, but the beauty of it is, though, is our running backs got to be patient, right? Sometimes you get these young running backs when they get the ball, they just want to go, and they think of pin and pull sometimes as it always has to hit outside. And we tell our guys, hey, be patient, let your pullers get going, and then as everything kind of flows over the top, right, you see that second puller, right, insert, and then that's where our running back's going to follow and then hit the seam, and then he's gone. Right, so big explosive play right there, right? Third quarter, right? It was a tight game in the first half, and we kind of found some plays in the second half we liked, and this was one. And any time that this young man, Skylar Cole, got the ball, man, it was an explosive play waiting to happen. He's one guy on our roster I'm excited about for his senior season.
Is he a track guy? Because he has got some burners.
So he actually called me, was it a week or 2 ago? Because he wasn't initially doing track. He was just doing some training. He's put on a ton of size. He's getting super strong in the weight room. We had Abe come out and do some time 40s for our guys, and based off the setup they had, he clocked in at a 4.52, which was amazing. I wasn't sure I knew he was fast, but that was awesome to see him. He wanted to get to a 4.5. And then he asked, he's like, hey, should I be doing track? And I kind of said, like, yeah, like you might as well continue to do track. I always want to push for multi-sport athletes. So if you want to do track, man, I highly encourage it. So I don't know if he ever decided to go out over spring break or not. So I guess I'll find out when I get back next week. But here's the end zone view. I skip ahead a little more. There we go. It's like it's taking forever, right? So you see your pullers get out, right? You see, 23 triggers down, 37, right? And sometimes, right, we'll see it in some later clips, right? This backside kind of will backer or this inside backer, right? He could be the one at times that if he reads it right and times it right, you see that gap, he can shoot that gap and chase it down from behind. So that's something that we got to monitor and track weekly on how we want to defend that, right? And we thought we can get there fast enough here, so we kind of leave him, and then this just the patient running, and then your free guy essentially, if you go here, is right, this guy here, right, this safety, that should technically be your free guy, right? I have 6 for 6 in the box here, right, so I should cover those. That means that the only guy that can walk down and potentially be your 7th hitter with the ball going this way is going to be your safety. So that's essentially, hey, it's a one-on-one matchup here, right? So we just say, hey, we like our guy better than that guy, right? Let him get to work. Right, and we'll get later. I'll show the complements of the RPO game and how that's effective. Like, this is just a basic RPO we tagged here, where it's just a stick with a slot fade. right? Where sometimes it's like, hey, we just want to run that. Like, hey, if they give us free access, cool, we'll take the hitch. Or if this guy walks down and decides he wants to step, like he's going to blitz and give us this hitch, we'll pull it and take the hitch. But in this situation, he widens to the flats. So essentially we get 2 guys taking away 3 here, right? And then you got your receiver essentially taking 2 guys. And by the time he triggers, he's already 10 yards back, right? When you got this guy out here, you kind of have to have 2 guys watching him, right? The receiver you were asking about, Roy Oliver, right? It's kind of, don't want to leave him one-on-one. So there's a big explosive play there. I'll get to the next one. So sometimes I'm long-winded, so we'll see how many of these I get through.
Coach, I love the tweak you guys made with the tight end there. It looks like Centennial, obviously that guy's a huge force player, so interesting. I like the adjustment there. Getting those 2 inserts was really beneficial on that one.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of, hey, what are they giving you? And it's really just like, it's really repetition. Like pin and pulls are a repetition thing. Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's just 2 pullers and go. And it's like, well, are they in an over? Are they in an under? Are they in a tight front? Is that end in a forefront? Is he going to play head up on the tight end? Is he going to play outside shade, inside shade? So there's a lot that goes into it. Our group did a really good job on that one. So here's another look, right? Where sorry, I'm on the wrong screen. Okay, where we look at it, right? They're kind of in that 3 front look too, right? They got 2 guys that are kind of walked down, okay? Or it looks like it's probably a 4 front with a backer walked down. But you essentially got 5 guys on the line of scrimmage here, okay? But we still have 6 for 6, okay? They're in a 2 high, okay? We got 1-on-1 over here, which we can also tag, and you'll see later. I'll show a clip where you could tag this guy on a pre-snap route, right? Saying like, hey, I like this matchup now, I'm going to take it. And then your post-snap will be up top. So here, right, usually, right, you'll have 2 guys, but based off of rules, okay, and I'll go to the end zone view, right, that way you can kind of see it. Usually if you have guys in your gap, they'll communicate and say, hey, who's going to be the puller, okay? So he's kind of maybe head up, inside shade, okay? He's tilted in a little bit. He's going to take him, right? He's going to make a call where, hey, if he doesn't know if he's going to slant or not, he might make a call. And I think our call was just a stay call. No, it was a solo call. So he's going to solo and take him kind of where he wants to go, right? And that means my guard is now the puller, right? These guys are going to block back, right? Because they got guys in their gaps here, right? So I still have 6 for 6. So this puller now, as he pulls, he's tracking this Mike backer to see what he's doing. Okay, so see, he kind of sees him, right? He kind of hesitates a little bit, right? I know linemen sometimes kind of, they get out in the open with nobody. They kind of freak out a little bit. But he gets just enough, right? With like a little bit of a better angle there. He tries to kind of wrap it too tight, right? And you get a big chunk play there, okay? And the downfall sometimes of calling these pre-snap RPOs is earlier in the game, this guy was walked down. They had a single high with a one-on-one. And our quarterback was like, hey, they got a single high safety in the middle of the field. I like my one-on-one matchup. I'm going to tag him with a go call, and I'm going to take that one-on-one matchup, right? So it looks like he thought, hey, maybe this guy is going to creep down because this guy's impressed, but he ends up bailing. So now he runs his route, right? And now you have that corner sitting there free after he sees the run. So he's the guy that ends up making the play. So that's kind of like the double-edged sword a little bit where if, hey, you tag those on that side, and sometimes it doesn't work out and you get a guy free. But we don't always tag this front side as a pre-snap. Sometimes the base rule is to block on to get that extra blocker and make the safety be the guy to be the fill guy. So a good chunk there, right? Another young running back here, Devontae Roebuck. He was a sophomore for us last year. He's definitely primed to have a big junior season. I'm excited for both of our running backs moving forward.
Where is his brother at now?
So they're not related. So
they're not. Okay, all right. The Roebuck's just not a super common last name, so I figured it had to be a relation to the young man from Marana, I believe, but I guess not.
Yeah. Okay. So Desmond was there in 2024, right? Stud receiver. Because we actually played them in the open, and that kid,
he was incredible. So
It's been awesome watching him at the second level. I knew he would play right away. He was just a freak athlete. But Desmond from Marana, his younger brother's balling out at Marana right now too.
I actually should have known that because I remember hearing that as well.
Yeah. So unless they're like cousins and I don't know it, but I don't think there's any relation.
Gotcha.
But I mean, this kid, Devon, great, hardworking, 4.0 student. Yes, coach, no coach. One of the strongest in the weight rooms. He's the type of player you want to coach. So I hope he has a huge breakout season next season because he deserves it. Here we go. Let me see what this next one is. I'm actually going to skip ahead because I got a bunch and I know I can talk a bunch. I can probably be on here forever. All right, so here's the RPO game out of it. Okay, so we got 6 guys in the box, right? They're showing pressure. So now our quarterback's going to look, right? I got 2 safeties here, right? I probably don't like my matchup. This guy's tight over here, right? I probably don't like a gift hitch. Probably don't want to run a slant or a glance unless this guy is really triggering, which sometimes when you run pin and pull to the boundary, this guy will trigger fast, and that'll open up the glance behind. So he's kind of uncertain. He's not sure what he's going to do. I think he's like, hey, he's probably going to stay high over the top. He's going to look over here to his left, and he's like, all right, this is going to be my 7th guy I want to read, right? He looks like he's playing outside leverage, so this is easy. Hey, I'm going to give a double slant call here, okay? And I'm going to read this. If I get this guy pressuring and not going back into this slant window, I'm going to pull and throw the slant. Right, so he kind of sees him, he kind of buzzes his feet, doesn't really gain depth, right? That linebacker kind of ends up in no man's land, right? He lines up at 2 and just stays at 2, so he's going to pull and throw. Right, so usually our slants kind of change up, like double slants. Like sometimes we'll say, hey, on the outside we want a big 3 in a slant, and then the slot, we kind of change it up sometimes, but sometimes it's like 1 big, 2 small for our slants. So the only thing I would have liked, maybe Jackson do a little bit better is quicker with his feet here and get rid of it maybe a split second faster.
So let me ask you this, Coach. He has the freedom to make that double slant, or you had slot fade on one of them. Is that his call, or is that game plan specific?
Okay, so this is probably going to be the thing, and I mean, you got to know when we're doing it anyways. I wouldn't really call it a secret. I guess it's more of a faith that I have in the guy playing that position is there is a lot of times I will make a tag call, and he will, based off of defensive leverage, he will make the tag. And it's not always that I do that. Like sometimes I'll say, hey, like I want this because they're going to show this, and they have shown that they'll kind of bail out of it, so they might like bait you into like oh, this double slant's going to be wide open, and then they bait you into it. But what you do is you create a menu of the RPOs you like. What are my pre-snap options I like versus what looks? What are my post-snap looks I like versus certain looks, right? And you kind of just create like a menu. And you're just like, hey, I like this, I like this week, okay? So like, hey, if I give you this and you're like, coach, like it looks a little dicey, I don't know if I like that, right? Okay, what's the other one that we've worked on that we like? Oh, I like this, all right, we'll tag it to that. Okay, so it's a lot. It's a thing that some people have like looked at me and they've been like you really like give him like some freedom, and I'm like, hey, like he's a really smart kid, he's a great quarterback, and I go, he's the one playing the game, right? I could sit here and watch film all day long and think that I like this and think that I like that, and he lines up and he sees that field right north and south, and he likes a certain call. You got to have faith in him to let him make that call. And what I've also learned too is when you give the quarterback some ownership and some kind of freedom to like be a part of the game plan and be a part of the decision maker, I think you get the most out of them. Because I've had certain quarterbacks that have been great, smart young men and might not be the greatest pure quarterbacks, but you could just tell they played with like a different level of like confidence because they're like, all right, like I can make a decision. I'm going to own this decision. So, I don't know. Maybe it's not something that everybody does, but it's something that I typically like to do.
Well, it was obviously very effective. You guys had Pac-Man numbers this year. There was some points where I was like, are they going to have a game where they don't score 50?
Yeah, well, when you got the guy you have at quarterback and you got, number 3 out there and they've been playing together for years, man, they're in each other's heads. They know where each other's going to be. They're a special dynamic duo for sure. So,
and 2 more years of them.
2 more years, and you got the young Oliver too, who is only a freshman, who I think he's going to be a stud this year as a sophomore. So we got some good young guys, man. They're hardworking. They're great. They're fun to be around. So yeah, so on this, I mean, it might have been a storm call that I tagged. That's kind of a common one, which is like a double slant, right? He might have tagged it to it because he's like, oh man, that defender looks like he's in man with outside leverage. Like, I'm just going to read that backer. If he just kind of sits there, I'm going to throw the slant, which he does a great job, right? 1st and 10, first down. Here's another one, right? Boundary. Now we're going to run pin and pull to the field. Okay, kind of got that four front look a little bit, right? They're kind of starting to walk guys into the box a little bit more. Right, so now you got your apex defender, right, to your pin and pull side. Okay, he still has his pre-snap over here if he likes it, right, depending on what this safety does. Based off of this alignment, I wasn't going to be surprised if he didn't decide to throw this go ball to Roy here because of all that space, but he decided not to. Right, and then we have our kind of slot fade slant combo up top. Right, kind of looks like they're more in man here. Right, I probably would have liked that slot fade to press a little more vertical before attacking the inside shoulder of that corner, just to kind of hold that safety a little bit, but that slant opens up. Right, which I'm good because, right, so we have, right, here's like another like layer to it, right? It's like, okay, we're going to run pin and pull to the field. They're going to play their apex linebacker, right, to the field, right? Because against a lot of like 2-high teams, and I know this is a 1-high situation, but against a lot of 2-high teams, some teams will put that kind of apex nickel / slam linebacker. Sometimes they'll put it to strength, and then sometimes they'll put it to speed, right, and away from the tight end. So like this time, right, since it's a single high look, you're going to essentially kind of have 2 overhangs. But this really looks more like a safety kind of walk down to play a man look. So you really just have this one overhang here. So essentially he's like, all right, if they're man, my guy's got to win on man. I'm going to read this guy right here. Okay. Now if he steps in out of that slant area, right, I'm going to pull and I'm going to throw the slant, right? Which I'm not mad at the decision, right? I think he takes maybe a little too long, kind of rides it a little too long, and right is kind of not as fast to kind of pull and throw. Right, we're always getting with him, hey, speed the feet up a little bit. Right, but Roman does a good job breaking this flat. Right, so the quarterback can put it just right on his chest. Right, slightly on that kind of back shoulder away from the safety. So if that guy is going to drive down and make the hit, he absorbs some of that contact rather than that ball being thrown out in front of him. And then this is kind of like the next level too, where sometimes, right, if you get the overhang here, right, you can have these conversations with your linemen and your tight ends. Whereas, what I mean by that is, hey, we got 6 guys to block 7. So sometimes, right, we can make, say, a push call, right, which tells my first puller that, like, I'm going to look to block the most outside backer. The next puller will look to get the next inside backer, and then our read guy will be off of the remaining backer, right? So that way we get these 6, right? These 6 for our 6, right? And we can essentially kind of read that guy.
So, Coach, while you got that end zone copy up, I know Hamilton has definitely one of the best offensive line coaches around. And walk me through the rules a little bit, because I understand what you said with the tackle. I guess my question with the guard, so your guard's pulling here. He's obviously going, there's nobody in my gap, so he's not checking if there's a guy head up on the center. How much do you end up pulling the center? Or how are there rules exactly on these, or somewhat?
So here, since the center is head up with this shade, right? He's gonna man him. Okay. He's gonna make the call. He's probably gonna tell his tackle, like, hey, I'm pulling, so you have to, right, probably scoop inside, take away this 4-eye. right? Same thing here. He's an inside. He's going to take him. He's going to be the one pulling. Okay, so like if teams have, heavy tendency of slanting certain way based off of your running back, you might say like, hey, like normally this is our rule, but since they like to slant like this, let's consider, right? Hey, guard, you're going to block down on that nose because he's going to slant, right? Say, away from the running back because they know we want to pull and get the pin and pull to the tight end. Which if they do start doing that, then we just come back and run some counter Y action right back the other way. But usually, if the center is going to pull, I'm trying to think of a situation. It'd probably be if you're running pin and pull to an under front. So say you have a 1 here, right? And maybe a 3 here. Okay, right? Probably more tighter, right? 1, right? Well, he would take the 3, right? Because there's a guy in his gap, okay? Well, now there's a guy in this guard's gap, right? So now your center could be the one that would pull. So that would be a situation when the center would pull, right? And you'll see, I have an example later too where there's like 3 guys not communicating very well. We end up getting 3 pullers and ends up being a massive loss. So there's always that to make sure that there's clear communication. Hopefully that helped answer
very
your question.
much so, Coach. Thank you.
Yeah. Right, here's the example I was kind of talking about earlier. Right, they got single high safety. He's in the middle of the field, right? He's probably splitting the difference right there, smack dab in the middle, right? So probably, hey, is this eyes are on these guys. Probably cover 1, cover 3 variation, right? Just kind of depends. We know it's single high, right? So pre-snap wise, right, I talk about with our quarterback is, right, if we are going to give the go call on pre-snaps, right, be aware of down and distance, right? If it's, 2nd and 3 or 4, maybe if you're going to take a shot, I'd rather be 2nd 1 and 2, maybe 3, right? If it's 3rd and 2 or 3, man, take something quick or just give it to our guy to get the first down. But this is a great example, right? It's 1st and 10, right? We're on the 42 going in, right? Prime position for taking a shot. Right, so he looks at the matchup down here at the bottom of the screen, sees the safety in the middle of the field, right? He's going to take his go ball. Okay, and we got certain base tags too, to where if he has a basic route, he has kind of a read route. He's either going to do this or this, right? And based off how this guy is playing, he knows he's going to convert it to a go, right? So he just kind of pulls it quick, takes his shot. Right, and then on the backside, right, we just ran our kind of double slant again. So he already kind of knew pre-snap with it being 1st and 10, safety in the middle of the field. He kind of knew, hey, I'm going to take my guy versus their guy and give him a shot. Right, keep the defense honest. So he did a great job there, great ball placement. Right, which was a good decision. Got a little kind of muddy up front a little bit. Right, and this is where, right, you kind of start to see, right, looking at your guys, you got guys lined up there, right, kind of in that under look, right, to the tight end, right? You can look at it 2 ways. Am I going to run my under to the tight end and call that the strength, or am I going to count it as an over with my 3 towards the field? It just kind of depends on how you want to, verbiage-wise dictate that. But look, you can kind of see them, right? They're now slanting to that over towards there. So they kind of see how it messes with your pullers a little bit. Right, I think we ran it, a decent amount early on. No, this was early in the game, I guess. Maybe they just slanted right. But good decision by him to pull it because it got a little dicey back there. Next variation of pin and pull is motioning a slot receiver, outside receiver, athlete, whoever you want to get the ball in their hands. Right, so in this set, right, early in the season, right, this is week 1. Right, I put one of our running backs. This is Skylar Cole from earlier. Put him at the slot and just ran pin and pull from out of the backfield. Which I think he ran that 4 or 5 times this season and took 2 or 3 of them like 60 plus yards. It was a huge home run play for us when we dialed it up. So now you essentially kind of get plus one blocking here, right? You get that running back out lead blocking to help take care of that apex guy. right, which allows your pulling lineman to kind of take care of everything on the inside. Right, and on the same thing, right, even on this motion, right, quarterback still has the option back the other way if he likes anything up top, right, if he likes a hitch, if he likes a glance, right, or if we like the hitch or we like the glance, we can still tag that, especially if this outside backer is triggering fast. Okay, we can do the same thing on the front side as well, right, if we like this hitch out here, we like that glance slipping right there behind that backer. Go to the end zone view real quick. That way it's right. So we kind of double motion out of this, right? We motion the tight end over, right? Try to get numbers to the boundary, right? And you can kind of see here, right? They're slanting, right? And our left guard kind of gets beat, right? He kind of steps inside. The guy beats him outside. And what our center does a pretty good job of, right, is working his way around all of it. And then Skyler being able to kind of follow him. Oops.
The center did an incredible job there, Coach. You see how much respect they're giving your passing game, because the few times I have seen ALA Queen Creek on film, they are bringing pressure a lot. And they're not in this instance doing some slanting, but interesting there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it being week one with them over at ALA Queen Creek, right, they essentially lost every single starter from that amazing season they had the year before where they took Bassett down to the wire in that semifinal game.
Yeah.
So I think it was just the coach kind of trying to figure out, like, hey, like, you know, what different defensive looks and slants and blitzes, like, is this group going to be good with? And I think that's why this group ended up being a dangerous team the second half of the season, is because they got that experience and they got that repetition, which allowed them to play with confidence. So I think early on it was just them trying to figure out their identity because of so many new bodies out there trying to fit into the defense.
That makes a lot of sense.
Because the second half of the season, I mean, that was a team that, you know, nobody really wanted to play because they were starting to have it dialed. But no, the center does a great job, right? He's a guy returning for us next year. So I'm excited to see what his senior year brings. But he does good, right? Our left tackle gets out there, running back, right? He does a great job with the vision, right? Making an explosive play. Right, come back and run it again, right? A little, right? I probably want Skyler a little wider on this to get more of a head start, right? He's kind of slow getting into it, but when you're pulling on this action, it's kind of fine for him to slow down so he can work to be patient, just like he does on this play. The same thing, right? Our quick motion, right? It's pretty much jet sweep with pin and pull rules, which was actually something kind of brand new that I kind of tried this year, right? Normally when I run jet sweep, it was always, you know, some coaches, right, they want to reach everything, try to get the edge. Some kind of want to peel back and leave the end, right? Kind of like what some NFL teams do. And I was like, I think we're getting good at pin and pull rules. Let's see what it looks like with pin and pull. And it actually worked out pretty well for us. So I don't really know if that's a variation a lot of people run. Maybe it's more at a two-back with jet sweep action. But
yeah, I have not seen a lot of that, to be honest. That's kind of cool stuff there.
Yeah, so it was kind of a fun little one to add, right? Obviously, Skyler loved it because he got to line up. When running backs get to line up at receivers, they get all pumped and juiced up. So he was excited about that. Then there's the home run hitting ability of him, right? Once he gets in the open field.
Cutting the weak arm, as I've heard my old high school coach Mike Clark used to say.
What he used to say, what was that?
Cut the weak arm here on that safety. The weak arm would be the right arm with where he's running, and he cuts the weak arm.
No. Okay, so, right, this was a slugfest, right? If anybody watched this game last year, man, Bash's defense insanely good. They got athletes all over the field. They do a really good job over there. The big thing was they got guys everywhere on the defense, and they had two defensive ends that had motors, right? That get upfield, make plays in the backfield, get after the quarterback. So kind of the mindset against them was like giving them a different variation, and trying to slow those ends down because, right, Dante Brule, right, he was an amazing defensive end. I thought Caleb Jordan, the other defensive end for Basha, is a phenomenal DN. He's going to be a monster this year. He's going to be a name to look out for when it comes to that front line. So what we decided to do was, right, certain times we wanted to get to our pin and pull, we had short motion, right, our tight end, our slot to that boundary, right, and try to use it as a way of, hey, they got ends that want to fly up the field. Can we kind of chip them, down block on them, possibly slow them down a half second, right, to kind of give numbers in our favor, right? And not, it's not the huge 60, 70-yard explosive play like some of the other clips, but if we're getting 7 yards a carry on pin and pull, I'll run that for 7 yards all day.
If you're getting 7 yards on a team that probably has backups that are D1 kids, that's pretty good too.
Yeah. So, and you can kind of see, right, it kind of gets, the thing that kind of kills pin and pull is you can kind of see it. If I go to the end zone view here is penetration. Penetration kills pin and pull, especially if you're going to get that second puller, right? So, yes, we chip the end to try to slow him down, but also we maybe snap it a half second late, and we get the chip late, and now he kind of gets knocked off balance and takes out our second puller, right? So it's kind of like, right, just a slight takeoff, but hopefully it slowed him down. Or the first puller kind of does a good job getting around, getting his eyes back inside, getting a piece of that backer. And then now we're one-on-one with the safety, and then that's a great open field tackle by that young man. So that's a different variation we ran. We ran it the first round of the playoffs. It was something that we kind of liked to use sparingly throughout the year. Right, depending on the situation, depending on what defenses like to do once you get inside that red zone / green zone. Right, I'm not the hugest fan of some gap schemes when it comes to this area of the field, just because of the field is shortened, there's more pressures, more slants. But they were kind of lining up in base, and they were just saying, we're just gonna be a bend don't break type team. And great job there. Pullers get out fast, good width here. Right, that second puller tries to get to that outside hip of that first puller. And then this is just being patient as a running back. Seeing that guy over the top, right? You kind of see that safety up top over here, right? Start to fly over the top. And Skylar's just patient, and then cuts underneath it and allows his two pullers to kind of kick out all that flow. So that little zip action variation was a good little change-up that I like to run out of pin and pull. I think we only ran it a handful of times, but it was a good change-up to throw in there. All right, we line up in 3-by-1, motion the tight end over. That's a good one we like to do as well to get to the boundary. Especially, right, you want to kind of see sometimes what some defensive coordinators do, right? They have this kind of 4-2 look here. When you motion this tight end, what are they going to do? Are they going to bump, right? Are they going to stay in place, right? If they bump, right, then we're probably going to have to push and let this guy be the free guy. If they don't, that means this guy is going to have to be the chaser, and we should be able to get 6 for 6. Right? And they kind of bump a tiny bit, but not enough, and it allows our kind of first puller to kind of get out wide and seal that edge, right? If he bumps out a little wider and becomes more of a true apex, right, I think it gives that first puller a hard time and makes our running back probably cut it inside, and then, maybe number 10 is able to make a play on it. But see how he stays in tight. 3 doesn't really bump. He's maybe even with that end, ends up being inside shade at the end. So that allows our tackle to kind of just loop around there and seal the edge, and then you get your second puller, right, running free. Right, so here's your situation, right? You were asking, right, hey, when's the center pull, right? Here's your situation. We initially lined up here, right, with the tight end over here. They dictated that the over front was going to be to the strength / field. And as we motion, right, they stay in that front. The front doesn't move. Backers bump a little bit. So now that tells our center there's nobody in my gap. I could be the puller now. So now our left tackle and center are the pullers. Right, and he ends up being free, right, leading the way. getting into some of the where it goes wrong. Right? I think at some point you said, hey, where's like the good, the bad, and the ugly a little bit, right? There's some bad / ugly. Here, right? So the last clip, right? Same thing, right? We're in the same formation, motion the same guy. Backers don't really bump, front doesn't bump, right? That means, right, there's keeping that over front towards the field. So my center is going to pull. But the thing is my first puller is more than likely going to look for him. My second puller is going to look for him. So that Mike, right, where he's already essentially on the line of scrimmage, right? So now that guy just replaces him as the puller. And what should have happened was our center should have been like, well, if my guy is going to blitz right here, I might as well just stay here and block him. So that's where, like, you got to be, like, those linemen got to be, like, heads up with, hey, like, that's my guy, but if he walks down over the top of me and he's going to show that he's blitzing, I got to make sure he doesn't shoot that gap and make the play, and that's exactly what happens.
So in this case, Coach, that center stays. You end up with the tight end on the down block, the tackle looping around, and you really got everybody accounted for.
So you take him out. You take him out of the equation, right? You're onto something here.
No
right?
question. You got everybody, and you're in good shape. Is there a call the center would make? I mean, he's just got to know, hey, I'm staying here.
I mean, he's got to know based off of his rules that he's staying, and if he wants to if they want to make it clear cut that neither of them are pulling, then they'll have their own little separate call. Where it's like, hey, we're down blocking this, we're basing this, whatever the tag they want to give that tells them, like, hey, we are staying and we're blocking our gap. So that's where, like, hey, if there's not good communication and you're not reading it right, that's where, hey, you get those free runners, right, that make great plays like that.
Well, and it gets back to what you said earlier about as you get closer to the end zone, you see a lot more of this, a lot more stunts, a lot more movement, things like this, and pressures. So that's an interesting observation and way to get it taken care of.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, as I noticed that a lot, and that was kind of, something I kind of learned from. I remember Chris McDonald bringing it up one time when, when I'd be calling for JV or like helping on in varsity with certain gap schemes, like once you got closer to the end zone, and him kind of being the one that's like, you don't always, like, you got to see what they're doing. You don't always want to be pulling guys, because that's when teams are more blitzes, more stunts, more different looks. So, I mean, there's a time in this game where we're trying to go tempo, and for whatever reason, pin and pull at a tempo on the 2-yard line comes into my mind, and right as I call it, I was like, what are you doing? Right, and then it gets, it gets stuffed for a no-yard gain, and I'm just like, no, we got to go and run this, and then we're fine. So, sometimes on my end, right, brain goes too fast, and you call it in certain situations that aren't ideal. So,
but it's like you said, Coach, the center stays here. You probably got a touchdown or at least a big play.
Yeah, it definitely turns into a positive play, right? Especially when the ball's in his hands, right? He's so patient and good at making one cut and getting vertical, right? It's definitely a positive play.
You see a lot more of these no-pull counters and no-pull powers from teams in college and the NFL, I've noticed.
Yeah, and I've kind of wanted to do more studies on some of those where, like, hey, some of those clips, like, is it really called no pull, or is it based off of rules, based off of what the defense gives you? So it could be a combo of both. Because sometimes if you get certain looks like on pin and pull, like you might get, I don't know, a bear front, you might end up just kind of slamming everything down, getting to the outside. So it just kind of depends.
Yeah.
Here's another situation where running back eager to get going, get to the outside, make a play. And you look at it from the sideline view and you're just like, all right, there's not much there. It's just him making a play. Now you get to this end zone view, and this is what I talk about running backs being patient and trusting your pullers, trusting your blockers. Because on this side view, right, you kind of see those guys pulling, right? And you see they make the decision to cut off the inside of the tight end and get vertical. Okay, because they start to see that flow. They see the tight end can't make that down block. It turns into a man block, and that guy's kind of trying to keep his outside free to widen that play. Now, if I go to the end zone view, okay, I love the read by our pullers here, right? Whether it was, a great read or just accidental, right? I'm going to say it was a great read by them. Like, right there, look at all that space, right? If he puts his foot in the ground here and gets vertical, right, he might be hitting his head on the goalpost.
He might.
Right, he's going to wrap, take away anything inside, right? I kind of messed with Devontae about this one a little bit. I was like, man, you were hitting your head on the goalpost. Right, so now, right, your puller cuts inside, so you have nobody working outside the tight end because those pullers already went vertical inside. So now you're just running to a free guy, and, luckily he's a very physical, athletic, gifted running back, right? He can break a few tackles, right, and still get a first down. So every once in a while, I like to show Devontae that clip. So that way, the next time it happens next season, he's going to hit that hole and he's going to go hit his head on the goalpost. Right? Here's kind of, another kind of part of the bad. Right? I'm not necessarily angry with the decision to throw it. Right? I probably would rather our outside receiver because it kind of looks, right, too high manish here. Right? I'd probably say this is kind of a two-man look. Right? And they kind of banjo this to the side, right? He kind of cuts inside. He takes him. I would rather our outside receiver to the boundary here kind of press him a little bit more, right? To make this guy have to say, well, he's still pressing vertical. I probably need to take him. And then he slips underneath, and it probably gives him some space for this to work a little bit. But since he just kind of one jabs and goes now, they're able to easily switch that off because they got safety help as well. So, right, so if I'm the quarterback here, like, if he runs it right, I like it. But I also don't like he's holding the ball. He's, trying to, force it in there. And I also look at, hey, flow of game, too. We've been having some success with the run game. I still like, if I go to the end zone view, right, I get this box, right, that seventh guy is over here. I still like 6 for 6 right here. Right, I still like 6 for 6. Right, I'm still thinking hey, I'm probably going to hand this off, right? Because if you let this play out, I believe it looks like it's going to open up, right? There's some space there. You can probably see it better from the side. And what I also kind of like just from the line here is I think they do a pretty good job. I mean, I think this is a pretty heads-up play by our right tackle here.
I agree. I was thinking that same thing.
Right, because, right, lining up here, right, pre-snap wise, you're like, oh, I'm going to down block, right? And then my guard's the one to go. He kind of sees this as the ball's about to be snapped, and he's like, oh, my tight end, he's outside shading me now. My tight end should now down block on him. Now I can go.
He had to process that very quickly, too. I think that's impressive.
Yeah, and that's, probably part of the reason why he's at Nebraska spring ball right now.
Doesn't surprise me. And the second puller did a great job looking inside, too. I think if this is handed off, this is a pretty good football play.
No, he does a good job. I think our right guard and our center, right, ends up almost kind of doubling that. Our guard gets out, right, it's good. If we go back to this view, you can probably see it a little better. But I think this is a touchdown. Right, I cut right off the butt of Rex here and get vertical, and now the only guy that can make a play is probably that safety. But he's too worried about this single receiver over here. So that's where, hey, sometimes when you tag RPOs to things and you let your quarterback kind of have those decisions, sometimes it gets a little greedy, right? But, I live with it. I trust that he makes the right decision. I trust that he's going to play with confidence, and that's what I want from him.
Well, as you said, Coach, giving him that ownership really helped a lot, and you guys, like you said, scored a whole heck of a lot of points.
Yeah, it's it was amazing, and hopefully everybody's asking me about Jax, right? Because he's having it's no secret he's he had that second knee surgery a few months ago, but everybody asked me, they're like, oh, is he going to be ready? Is he going to be back? And my response is he's going to be back better than ever. I'm not worried. And they're like, really? That's his second one? And I was like, I go, if I was able to come back after 2 ACL surgeries of my own and play wide receiver and start my last 2 years of college after 2 ACL surgeries, this kid can do it easily. because that's just the type of young man he is, and he's going to do everything in his power to make sure that he's ready for week one to be out there with his team. So I expect another, amazing season from him, which I'm excited for. And I think this is my last one, and I have this is ugly, right? All across the board, right? We talked about kind of the quick motion to slow down ends a little bit, right? They're playing him a little tighter here, right? Timing's off. He's leaning. There's a flag, and then we got student body left of pullers, and then you got a whole lot of green unblocked, and there's your ugly, right? So you get 5 yards for the false start or the illegal motion, and then you get a whole sea of green in the backfield. So there's your ugly, where if you aren't properly communicating, okay, because initially, right, you look up here. If I look at this look, I'm probably thinking, like, what 2 guys do you think are probably pulling here?
Well, your left tackle and your center.
Yeah, right. So that's what I would think pre-snap right now too. And then as this happens, right, he scoots in. Okay, is he right? Probably in a 4-eye. Now you're thinking that's probably just my center. And then they just decide, you know what? I think all 3 of us are just going to pull. Right. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but worst case scenario, I think tackle center still pulling is probably okay. Right, and if the right guys pull and you get the right bodies, there might be something here. But that's kind of the good, bad, and the ugly with pin and pull. Sometimes when you get teams that shoot that gaps and you don't really have answers for it, that's kind of I guess. Dang, I almost went on for an hour there. I told you I can be long-winded.
Coach, I got to tell you, that is one of the most fun ones I've had in a long time. I learned a ton. Really enjoyed it. Great film cut-ups. Super excited to watch the Hamilton Huskies, the 6A Open tournament in Arizona. I'm sure next year will be just as exciting as it was this year. And just want to thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time, Coach.
Of course. And hey, over the summer, I believe Built is having a camp at Yavapai College. And I believe that Prescott High School, I think, the football field is going to be used for that camp. We're supposed to be going up to that camp this summer.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely have to say hello to you then. I know. I haven't gotten our full schedule of camp stuff. I know we're working with Built, and I know we actually got Liberty coming. I didn't know about Hamilton yet, so that's exciting stuff. I'll look forward to.
I believe end of June is so. Yeah, I mean, if we're out there and you're around and you want to come watch practice, hang out, talk with whoever, man, you're more than welcome to come hang out with us and watch practice. So
absolutely love to. So thank you very much, Coach. And again, appreciate your time, and we'll see everybody next time for another edition of the Blue and Gold Gridiron Show.